wabarakatuh.
My name is Febi Angelia.
My name is Kirana Kusuma Widiani.
My name is Karin Septiawati.
We are from Group 2. In this video, we will discuss about phonetic and phonology, which is speech organ. For the first, you have to know about what is phonology and phonetic. By definition, phonology is the science of a system in a language. This science is one of the branches of linguistics that deals with how to pronounce a language. Phonology also discusses the history of a language, how the language can appear and disappear. Phonetics is the science that discusses how a sound can be formed using several body parts, namely the lips, teeth, tongue, pharynx, and lungs. This science only discusses the relationship between the body parts that produce sound. For the formation of a language, production to sound perception will be studied in this one science. In studying phonetics, you will get to know three types of phonetics, including articulatory phonetics, which is the study of how sounds are formed, auditory phonetics, which is the study of how a language is received by listeners, and acoustic phonetics. Articulatory phonetics is the branch of phonetics concerned with describing the speech sounds of the world's language in terms of their articulations, that is, the movements and or position of the vocal organs articulators. And then auditory phonetics is the branch of phonetics concerned with the hearing of speech sounds and with speech perception. It thus entails the study of the relationship between speech stimuli and listeners' responses to such stimuli as mediated, including certain areas of the brain. It is said to compose one of the three main branches of phonetics along with acoustic and articulatory phonetics, two with overlapping methods and questions. Acoustic phonetics is a subfield of phonetics, which deals with acoustic aspects of speech sounds. Acoustic phonetics investigates time domain features such as the mean squared amplitude of a waveform, its duration, its fundamental frequency or frequency domain features such as the frequency spectrum, or even combined spectrotemporal features, and the relationship of these properties to other branches of phonetics. For example, articulatory or auditory phonetics, and to abstract linguistic concepts such as phoneme, phrases, or utterances.
The definition of speech organ. Speech is an organ is the human body that functions in the pronunciation of language sound. That organ involved include the lungs, pharynx, nasal cavity, oral cavity, lips, teeth, tongue, ovellum, palate, vellum, and uvula. Speech tools are divided into two, namely passive articulators and active articulator. The passive articulator is the articulator that remains stationary in the production of a speech sound. Often this is a destination that the active articulator moves toward. The active articulator is the articulator that moves toward another articulator in the production of speech sound. This is articulator moves toward another articulator to form a closure of some type in the vocal tract. Active articulator is that organ which moves and passive articulator is that organ which that remains stationary or passive during articulation. Hence, during articulation, the active articulator moves toward the passive articulator and causes complete or partial obstruction of the flow of air in the vocal tract. The tongue can be called as the main articulator because the tip, the front, the back, and the root of the tongue act as active articulator in the production of most of the sound. For example, the tip and the tongue touch the alveolar ridge during the production of alveolar sounds like T and D. Lower Lower lip can also act as an active articulator during the production of bilabial sounds like P, B, M, and labiodental like F and Y. Passive articulature occur in continuum in the vocal tract. Examples of passive articulature are alveolar ridge, soft palate, hard palate. The speech sounds are namely named after the passive articulator.
The organ of speech. First, there is lips. They serve for creating different sounds, mainly the labial, bilabial, and labiodental. Bilabials are produced through upper and lower lip, such as P, B, M, and W. Labiodental sounds are produced through the upper teeth and lower lip, such as F and V. The lips play a role in changing the resonance of different speech sounds. By altering the shape of our lips, we can form different speech sounds. For instance, for plosive sounds such as P and B, the lips are compressed and then opened to produce a rapid, explosive release of the breath stream. Lips serve to close the mouth airtight shut. To hold food and drink inside, lips help to hold food between upper and lower teeth during chewing. Lips push food into the oral cavity proper during the voluntary phase of swallowing, where it is ingested and prepared for digestion in the stomach, and small intestine. Then there is teeth. They are responsible for creating sounds, mainly the labiodental and linguodental. Linguodental sounds are produced by placing tongue, tip between upper and lower lip. And then there is tongue. Usually it is divided into different parts: tip, blade, front, back, and root. Tongue plays important part in production of almost every speech sounds. The tongue is a large mucillar structure that nearly fills the oral cavity. The tongue is not one large muscle as some might suppose, but consists of several muscles grouped as intrinsic and extrinsic tongue muscles. The tongue is able to produce incredibly fine and complex movement by either directing the breath stream during consonant production or elevating and lowering to form a resonance vessel for vowel sounds. Then there is alveolar ridge. Alveolar sounds are produced through the front part of the tongue placed on alveolar ridge. Sounds made with tongue touching alveolar ridge, such as T, Z, L, D, and N. For the sounds S, air from the lungs passes continuously through the mouth, but the tongue is raised sufficiently close to the alveolar ridge. It is considered an important structure in speech because the tongue tip continually touches the ridge to form consonant sounds. In fact, in the creation of speech sounds, the tongue tip touches the alveolar ridge more than any other oral cavity structure. There is hard palate. The hard palate, which compasses two-thirds of the total palate area, is a plate of bone covered by a most durable layer of mucous membrane tissue which secretes small amounts of mucus. This layer forms several ridges that help create food while the tongue agitates it during chewing. The hard palate provides space for the tongue to move freely and supplies a rigid floor to the nasal cavity so that pressures within the mouth don't close off the nasal passage. In many lower vertebrates, the hard palate bears teeth. Like the alveolar ridge, the tongue touches and taps the palate when articulating speech such as J.
And the next, Vellum. The prediction of velar sounds is done by placing the back of the tongue against the vellum such as K and G. If we refer to the above drawing, we can see the vellum elevates and lowers during speech production. Like the tongue, the vellum is incredibly uh, coordinate and capable of very fast and fine movement. During speech, the phallus prime function is to close off the nasal cavity is the necessary function as most speech sounds are non-nasal. If we didn't have the phallus closing off the nasal cavity, we would all be talking through our noses, which would not be pleasant to listen to or produce. The phallus thus open for three consonant sounds, the nasal sounds M, N, and G. And the next, uvula. The uvula is used to make guttural sounds. It helps to make nasal consonants by stopping air from moving through the nose. During swallowing, the soft palate and the uvula move together to close off the nasopharynx and prevent food from entering the nasal cavity. It has also been proposed to that the abundant amount of thin saliva produced by the uvula serves to keep the throat well lubricated. It has a function in speech as well. In many languages, the uvula is used to articulate a range of consonant sounds. Known as uvular consonant, the, the voice uvular trill written in the International Phonetic Alphabet is one example. It is used French, Arabic, and Hebrew, among other languages, due the large amount of saliva products from glands in the uvula that are absent in the other mammals. It has been suggested. And next is glottis. As the vocal cord vibrates, the resulting vibration produces a buzzing quality to the speech. Sound production involving only the glottis is called glottal. Voice consonants include U, Z, B, D, G, and W. Voiceless consonants include F, S, P, T, K, and H. The glottis, a slit-like opening on the floor of the pharynx, is a valve that controls airflow in and out of the respiratory passage. The glottis opens directly into the box-like larynx. And the next is pharynx. The pharynx, commonly called the throat, is the passageway the extends from the base of the skull to the level of the sixth cervical vertebra. It serves both the respiratory and digestive system by receiving air from the nasal cavity and air, food, and water from the oral cavity. The pharynx is a tube which begins just above larynx. If you look if you look in your mirror with your mouth open, you can see back of the pharynx. The throat or pharynx and larynx is a ring-like muscular tube that acts as the passageway for air, food, and liquid. It is located behind the nose and mouth and connect the mouth and nose, the breathing passage, and the esophagus. And the next is larynx. The larynx, commonly called the voice box or glottis, is the passageway for air between the pharynx above and the trachea below. The larynx plays an essential role in human speech. During sound production, the vocal cords close together and vibrate as air expands from the lungs passes between them. When we speak, muscles in the larynx bring the vocal cords together. As the air rushes from our throat, the larynx, the front portion of the vocal cords vibrate production of sound. The upper portion of our throat that modifies the sound to produce speech.
I am, as the next speaker, will be explain to you about the way how the organ of speech produces the sound. How can we produce speech? It must be said that speech does not start in the lungs. It starts in the brain and it is studied by psycholinguistics. After the creation of the message and the lexicogrammatical structure in our mind, we need a representation of the sound sequence and a number of commands which will be executed by our speech organs to produce the utterance. So, we need a phonetic plan and a motor plan. After this metal operation, we come to the physical production of sounds. Then, is produced by an airstream from the lungs, which goes through the trachea and the oral and nasal cavities. It involves 4 processes: initiation, phonation, oronasal process, and articulation. The initiation process is the moment when the air is expelled from the lungs. In English, speech sounds are the result of a pulmonic aggressive airstream. Although that is not the case in all language or ingressive sounds, the phonation process occurs at the larynx. The larynx has 2 horizontal folds of tissue in the passage of air. They are the vocal folds. The gap between these folds is called the glottis. The glottis can be closed. Then no air can pass, or it can have a narrow opening which can make the vocal folds vibrate, producing the voice sounds. Finally, it can be wide open, as in a normal breathing, and thus the vibration of the vocal folds is reduced, producing the voiceful sounds. After it has gone through the larynx and the pharynx, the air can go into the nasal or the oral cavity. The vellum is the part responsible for the selection. As through the oronasal process, we can differentiate between the nasal consonant and other sounds. Finally, the articulation process is the most obvious one. It takes place in the mouth, and it is the process through which we can differentiate most speech sounds. In the mouth, we can distinguish between the oral cavity, which acts as a resonator, and the articulators, which can be active or passive, upper and lower lips, upper and lower teeth, tongue or tip blade front back, and roof of the mouth, alveolar ridge, palate, and vellum. So, speech sounds are distinguished from one another in terms of the place where and the manner how they are articulated. Summary: Phonetic is the study of sounds. To understand the mechanic of human language, one has to understand the physiology of the human body. Letter represents sound in a rather intricate way. This has advantages and disadvantages. To represent sound by letters in accurate and uniform way, the International Phonetic Alphabet, or APA, was created. Phonology is the study of the patterns of sounds in a language and across languages. Put more formally, phonology is the study of the categorical organization of speech sounds in languages. How speech sounds are organized in the mind and used to convey meaning. They move, they block the air, and they help us to produce sounds, words, sentences, or languages. Simply say that organ that produce sounds. We call them speech organs that produce sounds. We call them speech organ. Air passes through our mouth and the oral cavity helps to produce those sounds. There are many parts of speech organ: lip, tongue, teeth, alveolar ridge, hard palate, soft palate or vellum, pharynx and larynx, uvula, and glottis. Phonetic helps you in decoding words and pronouncing it correctly. It reduces mumbling and fumbling and helps in boosting your confidence. According to a research in UK led by education psychologist Marilyn Grant, the study shows the effectiveness of learning phonetics. For the conclusion, speech organ is the kind of organs in human body which distribute and support people to verbalize and produce sounds. Speech organ differ into two types. There are passive and active organs. Passive organ are organs which not move when we produce sounds, and active organ is the organ which move when we produce sounds.